Every parsha is special and distinct and unique. Parshas Ki Tetzei has its own very unique distinction in that it is the parsha which contains more mitzvos than any other parsha in the entire Torah. According to the counting of the Sefer HaChinuch, 74 to be exact, which is more than 10% of the mitzvos in the Torah. Really, many, many mitzvos. One of the challenges that we encounter when trying to read through Parshas Ki Tetzei is to try to identify the connection between one mitzvah and the one that precedes and the one that follows. In certain cases, Rashi, using the input of Chazal, will let us know what exactly is the understanding of what we call the smichos haparshios, the connection between one parsha, one pasuk, in this case one mitzvah and the other. One of the most fascinating examples is found at the end of the second aliyah and the beginning of the third aliyah, when there is a sequence of mitzvahs that seem to be completely unrelated one to the other. The first is the mitzvah shiluach hakein, where the Torah talks about what a person does when they encounter a bird's nest and wants to take the chicks or the eggs to first send away the mother. Then the Torah talks about the mitzvah of makeh, the obligation to place a fence on one's roof if it's a flat roof so a person doesn't fall off. Then the Torah talks about the mitzvah of kali kerem, which are laws having to do with the way a person is to plant a vineyard. Then the Torah talks about how a person is to plow a field and not to mix it in different types of animals. And then the Torah talks about the prohibition of shatnez and the mitzvah of tzitzis. So here you have 6 mitzvahs that seemingly have nothing to do one with the other, completely unrelated, and comes along Rashi and tries very, very simply, really in one sentence, to try to sum it all up. Says Rashi, Kisivna Bayis Chadosh, if you fulfill mitzvah shiluach hakein, if you do that mitzvah, sovcha, so in the end, you will be able to build a house. And if you build a house, then you'll fulfill the mitzvah of makeh. Shemitzvah goreres mitzvah, because one mitzvah literally pulls another one. V'tagia lekerim v'sodeh lebegadim noim, and then you'll have a field, and then you'll have nice clothing. Lekach nismechu parshios halalu, and that's why, says Rashi, these parshios are connected one to the other. Now in the Sefer Ber Yosef, so Yosef Salan points out that Rashi is saying something much more profound than perhaps we would have realized on our own. As far as we can tell, Rashi is simply saying, not that it's a simple idea, that one mitzvah is nigrar or gorer another mitzvah. One mitzvah pulls another mitzvah which follows, and so therefore you have what appears to be almost like sort of a random sequence of mitzvahs. But the Ber Yosef points out that Rashi is actually saying something a lot more profound, and that is that when a person lives a life in which he or she is committed to mitzvahs, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu will facilitate that individual's ability to continue to perform mitzvahs, to encounter new spiritual opportunities. And in order that a person should be able to achieve these moments in life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will often bless a person with the material possessions, with the wherewithal to be able to meet these opportunities and in certain cases these challenges. And so therefore, the way the Ber Yosef explains is that Rashi says, listen, if a person's walking down the road, let's say homeless, without a field, and encounters a bird's nest, and is zocheh to fulfill the mitzvah of shiluach hakein, so this person now deserves the opportunity, so to speak, to fulfill another mitzvah, such as the mitzvah of makeh. But the problem is the person doesn't have a house. The Torah says, no worry, kisivna bayis chadosh, you're going to build a new house. I built a new house, now I fulfill the mitzvah of makeh. But now I want to fulfill other mitzvahs that, let's say, need a field. No problem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to give you a field. And then you're going to have clothing. And you'll have all the material possessions necessary in order to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem. This is a somewhat different perspective, a take on Rashi, which is very fascinating. Because if we understand what the Ber Yosef is saying within Rashi, everything that we have in this world, all of our material possessions, which on the surface don't really, at least primarily, are not there for the purpose of facilitating mitzvos, we see that's exactly the opposite. That everything that I own is, as we would say, sort of a hechitimtza. It's an opportunity to be able to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem, to be able to fulfill the will of Hashem. And so therefore, rather than looking at a house, for example, as a place in which I have to put mezuzos, look at a house as a chefza, an object which is there primarily in order to facilitate the mitzvah mezuzah. I remember many years ago hearing a story in the name of Rebbe Wein. I don't know if it's a true story, but Rebbe Wein is the one who says that every story that he tells are true. Just half of them haven't happened yet. I don't know if this is one of those stories. But Rebbe Wein told the story that there was once a person who built a very, very large house. They were zocheh to have, tremendous wealth, and they built a beautiful, beautiful large home. And Rabbi Wein was invited by the Balabas to the house in order to walk around and to see exactly where they should put mezuzahs. After all, you have many unique rooms and doors and hallways, so where do you need mezuzahs? So Rabbi Wein walked around, and it was a very large house, and in the end they counted that he would need, let's say, 50 mezuzahs. So the guy said to Rabbi Wein, obviously he was joking, he said, Rabbi, had I known that I would need so many mezuzahs, I would not have built such a big house. Now, obviously, if the story is true, I'm sure the guy was joking. But in every joke, there's a little bit of truth. It is possible that a person can have the attitude, look, I've been blessed with something so great, and now I have to what? I have to give a little bit back. It's exactly the opposite. The house, all of those rooms, are many opportunities in order to be able to fulfill the mitzvahs of Hashem. And the Ber Yosef goes on to explain that on the pasuk, Kisivna Bayis Chodesh, when you build a new house, Vasisa Maki Lagagecha, the Targum Menukul says like this: Aretivne Beis Chadata, when you build a new house, V'tavetiko la'agrach, you should make a teak for your roof. Now, the word teak, some of us may be familiar. It's used in modern Hebrew, which means sometimes a bag, a container, something which contains something from falling out. In this case, it makes perfect sense. Pshat, a tika, understood as a makia, is something which protects a person from falling off the roof. But the Ber Yosef explains it means something much more profound. It contains the house itself. It's not that the house is there and we put a makia on top. The makia is the tick in which, through which, by which the house exists. Every house is an opportunity to fulfill many mitzvahs. I'm reminded, once heard that Rav Moshe Feinstein was once asked if a person could purchase a new car during the 3 weeks, before the 9 days. During the 9 days, a person should not purchase a new car for sure. But what about during the 3 weeks before the 9 days? So we know that during the 3 weeks, a person does not recite a bracha of Shehecheyanu, and any purchase that would warrant the recitation of Bracha Shehecheyanu should be postponed until after the 3 weeks, because you don't want to actually put yourself in a situation where you would have to recite a bracha that you should not recite during that time of year. So essentially, the question of buying a new car, said Rav Moshe, comes down to, well, do you make a Bracha Shehecheyanu or not? So, do you? So Rav Moshe says, it depends. What does it depend on? What are you going to use your car for? If you're going to use the car merely for your own use, if you want to be able to get to and from work, be able to go shopping, to be able to travel, so then it's a very, very special purchase. It's something that makes a person very happy and very excited. So therefore, absolutely, you should recite the Bircha Shehecheyanu, Shehecheyanu V'Kimanu V'Yiganu L'Zman Hazeh, and don't buy it during the 3 weeks. However, said Rav Moshe, if the car is going to be used in order to facilitate mitzvos, if I'm going to use it to visit the sick, if I'm going to use it to try to make deliveries for people who are in need, if I'm going to use it to be able to travel to places where I can learn and to study and to daven, if I'm going to assist other people with it, so then the car now becomes, like we would say, a mitzvah mobile, something which facilitates the service of Hashem and helps other people. And so now the bracha is not Shehecheyanu. The bracha is a bracha of Atov HaMeitiv, and such a bracha may be recited during the 3 weeks. So, strangely enough, Rav Moshe said that if you're going to use the car, not only during the 3 weeks in general, if you're going to use the car in order to do mitzvahs to help out other people, then you can recite a Atov HaMeitiv. Yes, you can buy it even during the 3 weeks. This is such a fascinating idea. It gives us such an interesting perspective. I encourage you to look around. Look at whatever you own. Look at all of the belongings that are in your possession and ask yourself, are these opportunities? Do I have opportunities in order to facilitate mitzvos? Do I have opportunities in order to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem? The sequence of all these mitzvahs over here is not that the reward for the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen is I get a new house, or the reward for the mitzvah of Mak is I get a new field. No, the reward for one mitzvah is the opportunity to do another mitzvah. That's mitzvah goreres mitzvah. But the only thing is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes that I can't do mitzvos if He does not give me the wherewithal to do so. And so therefore the material possessions that we are given in this world are given to us as an opportunity to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. As Jews, we believe that the entire material world, the entire physical universe, is a means which allows us to become closer to Hashem. Rather than denouncing, rather than downplaying the significance or the importance of the physical material world, we elevate it. We take it and try to use it to enhance our relationship with Hashem. And so we should be zoche as we read Parshas Ki Teitzei, and we see a myriad of mitzvahs, so many mitzvahs, many of which are going to be easier to relate to than others, but certainly many opportunities throughout this week's Parsha to stop and to ask myself, can I be doing more in terms of taking the wonderful material wealth that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has blessed me with, the possessions which I have been endowed with, and using them to facilitate my Avodas Hashem, to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, and to fulfill the will of God. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Shabbos.